Next, from Springfield, we speak with Stephen Westerfield, a Republican candidate for the Illinois House of Representatives in the 99th District. Stephen Westerfield, thanks for joining us on the Illinois channel, and you are just announcing your candidacy for the Illinois House of Representatives. In what district, and why will you be a candidate?
I'm going to run in the 99th District, and the reason I'm going to be a candidate is because I've been involved in the legislative process from the outsider perspective. I guess you could call it maybe the special interest side, lobbying, taking part in the way that things are supposed to work. Well, we've made very little progress in that area. So I've decided that I'm going to have to step up and take it a step further. If I want to see real change, I got to be that change.
What are the key issues that you're focusing on?
Parental equality, which parental equality is pretty much of a blanket term for equal rights for both parents. The fathers having the same say as the mothers. We've got the family court system. It needs serious reform. First off, we go off of a preponderance of evidence standard, which doesn't satisfy due process. I've got the case law to back all that up. I'll get into that down the road. Another thing is paternity fraud. We got these guys that are going into hospitals. The nursing staffs and the hospital staffs are encouraging to sign what's called a VAP. And they're like, well, what are we signing? Oh, it's just acknowledging that you're the father. Well, when they do that and they sign that, they're automatically taking responsibility for that child. Come a couple years later, they find out it's not their kid. They're still on the hook for child support because they signed that form when they really didn't even know what they were signing. So another thing I want to push for is mandatory DNA testing at birth, right there at the hospitals. I know they're going to say, oh, no, administrative costs. Well, we get Title IV D funding from the Social Security Act into the state of Illinois for establishing paternity. So, and all that money goes to DHS and child support enforcement. And it's on an incentive basis. They even call it incentive payments. Well, if you're already getting money into the state to establish paternity, then why don't we take that money and pay for these paternity tests?
And as a lot of issues have to deal with, obviously, things of the state budget and those social issues from time to time, how would you describe your political philosophy?
I lean pretty right. I'm fiscal conservative, very much so, especially now in these times. You've got to be, when our state can't even pay the bills. I'm very pro-life, very pro-Second Amendment. As far as like the budget goes, I didn't subscribe into a lot of it because there was so much rhetoric back and forth, and I didn't have time to sit down and read a 550-page bill. I'm working on another legislation for our cause, so I didn't have time to sit down with it, and I don't really like to listen to the rhetoric from either side. I like to read the bill myself and know what's going on. So I didn't have time, and it's not like I could make a difference in there anyway if I did read it. So I stepped away from. I would never approve a tax increase. There's alternate ways that we can come up with funding, thinking outside of the box.
Now, as far as on starting your campaign, have you talked to other people? Have you gotten any? One of the state representatives who decided not to run told us the other day that partly it was because almost every state rep race is going to cost $1 million in the campaign. How are you going to raise funds, or have you had a chance to think about it?
Well, I'm going to reach out a lot to my constituency base that I have now, which is the fathers, the non-custodial parents, the mothers, the grandparents, the brothers and sisters are the ones that are affected by this. I'm going to start there, and people are probably going to laugh and they're going to mock me, but if I have to get plywood and spray painted, I will do it. I mean, this is grassroots, and I'm not scared of their $1 million. Honestly, if I get a mailer in my mailbox, I'm going to be flattered. I mean, go ahead. If you got to spend millions of dollars to beat a high school dropout, then you've got issues yourself.
And relative to the education, do you think that would be an issue used against you, or if someone does raise it, what would you say? As
far as the education, I would say this is that I would love to have a debate with them about public policy, and especially if it's anybody that's currently sitting in the General Assembly, because they passed a bill with House Bill 2812. So what this bill does is it allows for DHS to contact your cell phone companies, and your cell phone company would have to give out the geographical location of a punitive father or a non-custodial parent without a court order. So that's a huge due process violation right there, and the whole entire General Assembly voted yes for it. Well, aside for two, Amons and Necritz. There's the only two that voted no. So we've got the due process violation. So anybody sitting in there can't recognize that we've got issues. And then second, they wrote in the bill, includes cellular phone company, includes any carrier or provider, but excludes any carrier or provider of a prepaid phone. But we've got 4 carriers in the United States. You've got AT&T, you've got T-Mobile, you've got Sprint, and you've got Verizon. All 4 of them offer prepaid services. So they are a prepaid carrier. Everybody else, Boost, everybody else under those are prepaid, those are providers. So what the state did is they went in and they wrote a paragraph in there to allow that to, we can get this information from them. Then the second paragraph says, excludes, all four carriers are prepaid carriers. So therefore the law's null and void, and not one of them caught on to it. And here I am, a high school dropout against these guys with college educations, and they can't catch on to that? You think that the companies have 15 days to comply. If they don't, it's a $100 a day fine afterwards. AT&T, you try to stick them with a $100 fine. Their attorneys are going to chew you up. I mean, then we're going to have lawsuits in the state of Illinois. Is it fiscally responsible? Again, nope.
What do you do before we close out? What is your occupation?
My occupation is right now I am a janitor. I clean office buildings at night, scrub toilets, and I work for a local company here, small family-owned business here in Springfield, and I wouldn't change it for the world. During the day, I'm a stay-at-home dad. And before we do finish, I'd just kind of like to run down some of the things that I would like to be proposing here. So number one, I want to repeal the Public Act 98-0682, where in 2014 they made state lawmaker pay a continuous appropriation, while state workers had to be paid through court orders. So they put their own pay above those of the people that they were elected to represent. So I want to change that. We've talked about the parental equality legislation. I want to find out where the Illinois lottery money's going. You know, if we figured that out and we actually allocated that back to the schools, we might not have been having this whole discussion on Senate Bill 1. I don't know. But, I would like to know where that's going. I would like to see number for number. Also, I would like to combine the state disbursement unit and the child support enforcement agencies. There's no reason that those two agencies can't come together and do all the work out of one office. Why do we need to have extra agencies out here eating up extra tax dollars? And it's pulling out of our Social Security. So that really irks me too. I mean, here we are shriveling up our Social Security Act, even, our Social Security fund even more. Then I want to reform the Juvenile Court Act and restructure the juvenile point system. These kids nowadays, they're going out, they're stealing. I had my own daughter stealing from me, and there was nothing I could do about it. The cops come out, and they're like, well, it wouldn't be enough points. So there's nothing they can do about it. And so then we've got people like Squad and BP running around shooting each other in the streets. We just had that. It was the Wild Wild West in Springfield about a month ago. But you can't do anything to these kids. They almost literally have to kill each other before you can detain them. So I want to change that. And then the big grand finale, I want to reduce lawmakers' base salary to $35,000 annually from the $68,000 annually they make right now. Why I want to do that? Well, we're the 5th highest paid legislature in the nation, and we're probably the least productive. We're the highest paid legislature in the Midwest, and we're definitely the least productive in the Midwest. If you look at the base pays in all the states surrounding us in the Midwest, it's all about average out to $35,000.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Terry, for having me.